Hello and welcome. This is Jody Wolfthal, Google for Education trainer, and this video is going to be about making forms and all the great things that you can do with a form. So starting off in my Google Drive, what I'm going to do is create new. So you're just going to hit this little new button and you'll drop down. You see it's not actually here, so you have to go to more and just hover over it. And then Google Forms is the first one. So if you again go to and hover over that little arrow and click blank form, it'll open up a brand new one for you. So this is your starting point. So there are a few options here. The first thing you're going to do is probably name your form. I'm just going to say do now because I use them for do nows because they are so simple. And I think it's great for comprehension checks. It's great to kind of assess their understanding, their knowledge, and it's a really easy way to correct misconceptions. So, because I use these all the time, I can actually import from other forms I've already made. But if you haven't actually made them before, let's do the first few questions together. So the first thing you want is their name. Now, you can see it automatically, as soon as I typed in name, it went to a short answer response. I also like to make sure that this is a required question, so that way they cannot submit the form without answering this question. The other question I always do is an ID number. Again, you saw that it flipped to a short answer response. It also made this response validation, which required it to be a number. So if they try to put a letter in there, it actually will not let them submit that response. And you can always add data validation on your own. The way that you would do that is these three little buttons at the bottom. You would just click on them and then hit response validation. And that's how you can do that on your own. And you can make it, you can make validations for text length, all sorts of things for short answer responses. So you can explore that. So that's another type of question. I'm going to add a question again. So you saw just hitting that plus sign adds a question. So there are different style questions. So I'm just going to go through the different answer choices. You've already seen short answer. They can also be paragraph questions. If you need paragraph questions like for history or English, those are more used for that. I don't tend to use them for my biology classes. I like them to produce other things. You can do multiple choice questions, which again are just with as many options as you need. You can also do checkboxes. So maybe it's a question that has multiple responses. So then they could do checkboxes. You can also give them a drop-down menu. So just like this is a drop-down menu, it would ask them to submit their answer from that drop-down, and they would just click it and choose their answer. You could also allow them to upload a file, but there's always a restriction to the size limit. So I try not to normally do that. Cancel. You can also give them a linear scale. So this is really great for comprehension checks, right? How well did you understand? Understand today's lesson. And then you can say, totally lost. I could teach this, right? And then they have to pick that range from 1 to 5 on how well they actually understood the lesson. You could also do a multiple choice grid or a checkbox grid. So if you have maybe a bunch of things that you want them to identify or sort or categorize, right? Those types of questions. You have both of those, whether it would be one answer per question or multiple choices per question. So those are options. Maybe if you were asking them for an appointment slot, you would give them a date and time answer as well. So those are the different types of responses that you can allow them. So it kind of gives you free range on what you would ask because there are so many different options. So the other things that you can do are add titles, which give you kind of the option to give long texts if you need to give a longer question. You can also add an image. So that's pretty simple. You could upload an image. I usually like to find them on the web, save them, and then use them. You can also import or a video or use a YouTube video. You can also just put the URL. I like to normally find my video first and then just import the URL. So then they could watch a video and then have questions to answer after the fact. And then This little guy actually makes a brand new section. So what that does, I'm just gonna get rid of that. So what that does is they would have to answer these questions first, and then they would be allowed into that new section. Sometimes I do that for unit exams. Um, but or like a create your own story type of thing, or if I'm polling them and I want to just segment my questions, I might do sections. So it does kind of give you that option, especially because you can see you don't have to necessarily go to the next section. You can really play and make like a story for them. If you did a create your own story, this would be the way to do it. So that could be really fun if you're into exploring something like that. And then I saved this for last. So that's an import. So if you have other forms that you've already created, you could actually import questions from them. So I'm just going to look for another quiz that I've already made. And then you can see all those questions come up right on the side. And you can scroll around and then choose whichever ones you want to import. And then what they're going to do is it's going to import exactly the way that it's formatted in that other quiz. So because I imported questions from a quiz, right, they have answers. You can also see that because of where I was, had my mouse placed, I put them in between the other questions that I already created. But that's okay. It's super simple to move questions around. If you just click on, you can see this is an image too. If you just click and hover over the crosses. If you click on that and hold it, and then drag it down to wherever you want it to be, and it'll move those questions around. You can also see when I click on it, this shows that that was the correct answer. It also shows the amount of points. So to actually make it into a quiz, what you're going to do is over here is the settings. And you're going to see because I already imported it, those quizzes are already going to be turned on. So if I had not imported that, this would not be on automatically. And you would actually have to turn it on, essentially to make it a quiz to allow you the option for putting in points and selecting a correct answer. So then you can see that I had not given those students the missed questions or the correct answers, because sometimes if you have that on for a quiz that you're actually grading as a summative assessment, those students can share the answers, especially being virtual at this time. So I'm not going to check those. However, if I'm doing something like a do now, where I just want to make sure that they understood the lesson and correct any misconceptions, I would choose to show them the missed answers and the correct answers. So that way they can correct those understandings right away. And it's not necessarily me hovering over them. I don't have to wonder if they read my comments on a written assessment or anything like that. It's automatic. They want to know what they got right, what they got wrong. They're already invested into it. And it's immediate. So that feedback, that immediate feedback is amazing. So you're just going to hit save. You did have other options. Sorry, let me go back and show you that you have these general options. So again, when I do vocab quizzes or any type of summative assessment, I do limit to one response per person. That way, students can't give me multiple responses. I don't want them to take a vocab quiz and then retake the vocab quiz and get 100 if they originally got a 70. I want to make sure that they are limited to that one response. You can also change the presentation of questions. So you can shuffle the question order. You can also allow them to have a progress bar that shows them how far into the quiz or assignment they actually are. So I don't normally shuffle the question order because, as you saw, I do have to ask the question of what is your name, what is your ID, and if that falls further down in the questions, it usually catches the students off guard. I know because I have done it, and they always ask me, why is the name all the way down here? And I realize it's because I shuffled the questions. So I tend to not do that. Again, always make sure that you save if you make changes. Okay, so once you have these questions, once you have the quiz turned on, the way that you add points is you actually have to click on answer key. You can change the amount of points right there, and you can select your answer. As you can see, you can select multiple answers as being correct, and then you would just hit done, so that way those changes are saved. Now, one of the fantastic things about quiz, about making a quiz is, so this, as you can see, is the quiz that I pulled questions in from. You can see what images look like. I just wanted to kind of show you that. I also want to show you that once people have taken it, you have this responses option. So it tells me that this is my summary. I've got 89 responses. It shows my insights as far as what the spread is of my scores. It gives me an average, a median, the range. You can go score by each student, and what order the tests were taken in, right? So it also gives you that spread of um, how many people from each period, and then how many, the percentage of students that got them correct, and then the other answers that were chosen. That was a little bit of a tongue twister for me. So here you can see that 69% of my students got this question correct, and 78.4% got it correct, whereas 9.1 and 10%, right, those were split. So obviously my students thought that those were also relatively good answers. So you can kind of just see where the chips fall and determine whether or not your students across the board really understood a concept, and then kind of narrow it down to which questions maybe were harder than others or more difficult than others. And then you can go back and reteach the next day, and review and reteach those concepts. So that's one of the really fantastic things about using forms as a quiz, as an assessment, and then being able to use all that data to shape your future lessons. So that was my quick, easy form video. I hope it was useful. If you guys have any other questions on creating forms or looking at the data, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. I hope you guys have a great day.